Welcome back everyone to Catherine's Plates. I want to wish everyone a happy new year. I'm going to show you what our dinner is going to look like. It's going to consist of porcupine meatballs, sauteed cabbage, and some mashed potatoes. Now this is very reminiscent of flavors from cabbage rolls, which I really love. So come on along and I hope you enjoy this one. Okay, we have all the ingredients right here to make the porcupine meatballs, our sauteed cabbage, and mashed potatoes. Now these flavors right here mimic the inside of a cabbage roll, and I love this recipe because it's in a meatball form, so you're not constantly having to roll cabbage leaves and fill them up. So it's a really easy recipe to make. And I love this one. It's called porcupine meatballs because there is rice inside of the meatball and they look like the tines of a porcupine. So we've got some rice. This is a long grain white rice. You want to make sure that it's uncooked. I have a can of beef broth, 2 cans of tomato soup, 2 pounds of some ground beef. We got 2 eggs. Now I'm just showing 1 egg right here. I'm going to have to go get my other egg. We've got seasonings, salt, pepper, Worcestershire sauce or Worcestershire sauce. We've got some parsley flakes, garlic powder. Now we're going to put onion in it. I'm just using this minced onion out of a jar, or you can dice up an onion very small if you want to do that, probably about 1/4 cup of them. And then we've got some butter to kind of brown up our meatballs with. Over here I've got my cabbage. So instead of rolling cabbage leaves, we're just going to chop this up and we're going to saute it down. I've got an onion in here chopped up that I'm going to be chopping up with the cabbage. Some chicken broth. I'm also going to season all of that with some salt, pepper, some garlic powder, and then a little bit of extra butter. Now I have some potatoes here because I'm going to peel these up, chop them up, and then I'm going to just boil these up and make mashed potatoes to go with our dinner. Let's go ahead and get started with the porcupine meatballs. In a large bowl, I've placed the 2 pounds of ground beef. We're going to place 1 cup of the uncooked white long grain rice. We're going to crack 2 eggs in. Okay, I did dig the first eggshell out that fell in. There we go. Sprinkle in about 1 teaspoon of Worcestershire. I'm going to sprinkle in about 1/2 teaspoon of garlic powder. 1 tablespoon of parsley flakes, some black pepper, about 1/4 teaspoon, and a little bit of salt. I had to go get the one that's got some salt in it. There we go. We're going to start mixing this all together. I've just got some gloves here that I'm going to put on. Now I'm going to blend this all together till it's well incorporated, and then I'm just going to form 1-inch meatballs. Now if you find that your mixture is too wet, you can add some breadcrumbs to it. Or maybe if you think it's too dry, add a little bit of milk, but you don't want it too thin or too thick. This is just good right here. I'm going to put my skillet over a medium-high heat, and it's a very large skillet because we're going to be simmering the meatballs in there after we brown them up. I'm going to add about 2 tablespoons of butter. Now before I put the meatballs in, I want the butter to be sizzling. That way we can start browning the meatballs. I'm going to be using a 1-inch, this is like I think a 1.5-inch cookie scoop. I'm going to be using that to form the meatballs. And what you want to do is just take your mixture, run it through your bowl of mixture, just flatten it out on the side. And you place that into your skillet. The butter will just give it a nice flavor. You can also use some cooking oil if you want to do that instead of the butter. Now I haven't started on my cabbage yet because that won't take as long as the meatballs will take simmering. So we're going to hold off on that until right when we start simmering the meatballs. Just pack it in good when you roll it around the edge of the bowl here. Pack it in good. Now you can half this recipe if you want to do that and just do the 1 pound of ground beef, just half everything else. I like to make extras. They never last. Just put them in your refrigerator, the leftovers, they'll go quick. I just kind of push it in and then scrape off the edges there. Get it a good sized meatball. There we go. Perfect. And that rice is going to bloom up inside the meatball and poke out. Now if you wind up with more meatballs than will fit in your pan, you can do the first batch, brown them up, take them out, and then do the second batch, brown them up, and then put them all back in. And that'll work too. Browning the meatballs give them a nice flavor too. This is the first batch, so I'm going to brown these up. So you just want to take your meatballs and just flip them around. And just be careful with them, so you want to hold their shape. You don't have to brown the meatballs if you don't want to. You can just form the meatballs really tightly and then we can make the sauce for it and then simmer them that way. I like to brown them up because they just give that nice brown color to them, and it's crispy on the outsides. Just locks in all those delicious flavors too. So now that I have them all turned over, except for this one right there, there we go. I'm going to let them brown just a little bit on that side and then just start spinning them around. I'm going to cook up my second batch and then put them all back together. And then I'm going to bring you back. In a small bowl, I'm just going to add the 2 cans of tomato soup. I'm going to take 14 ounces of beef broth. Just slosh it around into the cans to get the excess tomato soup out. You can take a spoon and help you get the rest of it out if you need to do that. Put some black pepper in, a little bit of garlic powder, and a little bit more Worcestershire. Mix this together. Then I'm going to pour this over the meatballs. So we're going to put the temperature of the meatballs up to a high level. That way we can start simmering the sauce and bring it to a boil. They're all sunk into the sauce there. All right, let's bring this to a boil. Once it starts coming to a boil, we're going to turn the heat down to a low, We're going to let this simmer with a lid on for 35 to 40 minutes until the meatballs are nice and tender and cooked through. Now we're going to start making our cabbage. I'm just going to cut my cabbage core off. I like to go around the sides. It's just easier to cut like that. And then as you do that, just cut it into bite-sized pieces. I'm going to place it into our big pot here. I'm just using my cast iron Dutch oven. It's enamel plated on the inside. You can use any kind of large pot. I had already taken off the outer leaves and then just gave it a nice rinse to clean it off. I do have a full recipe on making cabbage rolls, the original ones, and then I have a cabbage roll soup that I've made also that is so good. And I think I have a one-pot cabbage roll recipe also that's broken down, that's not stuffed. Okay, we got that in there. I'm just going to take my onion here. I can put too much in there, but it adds a nice flavor. So I'm just going to cut it nice chunks because it'll soften down just like the cabbage will. We're going to go ahead and turn on that to a high heat right now. I'm going to put in about 2 cups of chicken broth. Put in 2 tablespoons of butter. Oh, I don't mind sitting around the stove making this dish. It's one of my favorites. Definitely some salt. I like black pepper in it. A little bit of garlic powder. Slap a lid on that for right now. When it starts simmering, I'm going to take the lid off and then stir it all together and then start breaking the cabbage down for just a few minutes. Okay, I still have about 30 minutes before the meatballs are going to be done and the cabbage will be sauteing. So I'm going to go ahead and I've got a medium skillet and I'm just going to be dicing up small so they cook fast. Just some russet potatoes. I just peeled those and chopping them into nice dice-sized pieces. And then all I'm going to do is just fill it up with some water, just about 1 inch over the potatoes. Give it a little bit of salt, bring it to a boil, allow it to simmer until the potatoes are cooked through, nice and tender. Then you can just drain them and then add what you like to add for mashed potatoes. Now what's great about this is that you don't even have to do potatoes. If you want to do this with egg noodles, a pasta, or if you want to make some additional rice and just put the meatballs over that, you can do that also. Oh yeah, look at that. Alright, we're going to mix this all together. Y'all let me know down in the comments what you're having for New Year's Day. I'm going to drop that down to a simmer and let that stew. I'm going to add some milk, my drained potatoes, definitely a cube of butter, some salt, and some pepper. I'll mash this together. Then we're going to see what else we need. Now check these out. Oh, look at that cabbage sauteed down. Perfect. Take the lid off to kind of cool that down just a little bit. All right, let's check these porcupine meatballs. Give that a check. Don't they look like porcupines? Every so often while it's cooking during that 35 to 40 minute range, you want to make sure you lift the lid and just kind of push the meatballs around so they don't stick down to the bottom. All right, you can hear that. That sauce has thickened up really good. We don't want to break up the meatballs here. Don't they look like little porcupines with the rice sticking out? What we're going to do now is just take a bowl. We're going to place one in. I'm going to check it for doneness and make sure that the rice is cooked through, the meat is cooked through, and then it's nice and tender, which I can see it's nice and tender. So I'm just going to blow on this right here. Got a little bit of rice on it. Oh, there you go. I'm going to give that a try. That's good. All right, I'm going to turn off the heat. There you go, you guys. My New Year's Day meal. We got the porcupine meatballs simmering in that delicious tomato soup. Got the cabbage that we sauteed down right here, and some mashed potatoes to go with it all. Let me plate this up, and I'm going to give it all a try for you. Oh my gosh. If you want the cabbage rolls flavors, make this porcupine meatball, cabbage, mashed potato plate anytime. It is so delicious. I'm ready to go sit down with this one. Okay guys, give me a thumbs up on this one. Let me know down in the comments what you're having for New Year's Day, what you had for New Year's Day, whichever way it is. Okay, y'all, I will see you on the next episode.